Y'all hear me? Doug Bell. My name is Doug Bell, and I'm on the board of Capital City Village, and a lot of other people here with Capital City Village already, but we have some new people as well, and we're here to try to explain what our program's about and see if people would like to join us. We have a great program. It's geared around staying where you live and living well. So our speaker tonight or today is Tommy Ferguson, and she's the executive director, and she has a program to put together. So she's going to make a presentation and explain to everybody what Capital City Village is all about. And then we'll have time for questions probably a few minutes afterwards. So thanks everybody for joining us. And with that, I'll turn it over to Tommy.
All right, thanks everyone. Thank you for giving us some time this afternoon. I really appreciate that. As Doug mentioned, my name is Tommy Ferguson. I'm the executive director of Capital City Village. Doug is one of our board members, and we've got a couple of other members of our board and members of our group here on the call today. What I want to do is just give a brief presentation, probably about 20 minutes or so, and then we'll have plenty of time for Q&A in case you have any questions or want to bring up some comments or special issues to address. Just a quick note, we are recording the session today, so if you hear of a friend or neighbor that wanted to be with us but wasn't unable to today, we will have that recording available on our website within a couple of days, as well as our YouTube channel. So I'm going to go through a presentation. I'll be screen sharing to show you a little bit about what we do and why we do it and who we are. And again, we'll have plenty of time for questions afterwards. So during the presentation, if you would remain muted, just keep in mind we will have plenty of time for sharing as well. So I will go through a few things here and pull this up. So if everyone can see this, all right, it's stay where you live well where you stay. That is kind of our motto here at Capital City Village. So I'm going to bring up just a little bit of information. And again, we'll have plenty of time for Q&A afterwards. Okay, so I want to make sure if everyone can see this, I'll zoom out a little bit. So just to bring a little bit of context about why the village concept came about and why the model grew, and I'll give you some detail about that. Just some information about the context, and it really starts with demographics. There is a demographic imperative sort of pushing the need for people to help one another, especially as our ages advance. And so I've got a little bit of information, something that you might have seen before. Certainly the baby boomers are a really pivotal group, a very pivotal generation that just as they have at every stage of life, they are really transforming the way we think about aging and retirement and working cooperatively in sort of our third age or our third act. And so this kind of gives you just a brief picture, decade by decade, the impact that baby boomers have had and will continue to have currently and into the future on our population. And this is primarily looking at the US, but of course this is true worldwide as well. But if you'll look at this, you can see that the baby boom generation there, the first group of that baby boom generation started turning 65 in, I believe, around 2011. And since then, you can see the impact that that group has had on our 65 plus population since then. There's a couple of remarks here that I think are worth driving home. Currently, if you look at the US population, those 65 plus represent about 15% of the total population. And that's going to jump just in the next 9 years to about 21%. And that's when the youngest set of the baby boomers will have turned 65. I'd like to note that this is really unprecedented in human history, not simply the large group of baby boomers and large group of 65 plus individuals that help compose our demographics, but also just that increased longevity. So not only do we have a bigger cohort of people that are in that third stage of life, but also people are living much longer than they did 100 years ago, even 50 years ago. And that this group is increasingly diverse, both ethnically, racially, with regard to income. It's really a very diverse population. Just a little bit more to drive home this point, by 2034, so again, this is just a few years away, Americans 65 and older will outnumber those younger than 18 for the first time in history. So there will be more people 65 plus than there will be 18 and younger. And this is a quote. It's based on a US Census Bureau report, but I pulled this from a New York Times op-ed just a couple of days ago. By 2060, nearly 1 in 4 Americans will be 65 years and older. The number of 85 plus will triple, and the country will add 500,000 centenarians. Now, that to me, I'm a little bit of a geek with regard to demographics, but that to me is just really, really critical and really drives home the point of why organizations or efforts, initiatives focused on helping seniors age well in their own communities is really, really critically important. So to bring it a little bit closer to home, this is a snapshot of our Texas population, and this is divided up by county. So this is the 2000 census count, and you can see that as far as the senior population represented, where it accounted for more than 20% of the population in those counties in blue, rather sparse in 2000, but projected by 2040, we're looking at counties across the state that will have 1 in 5 of their population as 65 plus. This is the 3rd largest population of older adults in the US. And specifically here in Austin, the Austin metro area is the 2nd fastest growing population of seniors across the US. And it's the fastest growing population of pre-seniors, those folks 55 to 64. So those folks that are within the next decade will certainly hit 65 plus. And that there are now 3 million Texans age 65 and older. And to give you a little bit of idea about how that compares nationally, there are 20 states across the US that only have a total population of 3 million people or less. So really, the senior population in Texas is almost like a state on its own. So the point in bringing up the demographics is really just to create some context about the discussion of the village concept. So the concept itself is really about growth, connection, and purpose in the later stage of life. So our organization, Capital City Village, was established in 2011. We are celebrating our 10th birthday this year. We are an Austin-based nonprofit, a 501c3 organization. And our mission is really focused on helping seniors stay in their homes and communities for as long as possible. So I'll get into some details about that. And then again, we'll have certainly some opportunity for questions and answers. So the concept, just to put some description to it, it is really very much about neighbors helping neighbors. It is member driven. And what I mean by that is that members of the organization really help drive what we focus on, the services we provide, the programs that we put together. It's not a top-down model. It is very much a grassroots, bottom-up model. It is naturally intergenerational. That includes members within our organization as well as our volunteers and staff. It is affordable. We have a sliding scale for membership, and generally speaking, one of the most affordable ways to help seniors is to really keep them in the homes that they have already established some affordability with, and of course, some really strong connection with. It is connected. Our whole issue is really about keeping people connected to others. We have a volunteer first approach, so that if there is a need in the village, that we look first to our volunteers. And I'll go into a little bit more about the vetting process for our volunteers. And then beyond that, we can connect people to other resources as needed. It is self-sustaining. So some of our, about 35 to 40% of our operating revenue comes from membership dues. Another big portion comes from our own fundraising efforts, including an annual luncheon, a golf tournament. We do participate in Amplify Austin, and then we do have some private donations, and we have had some foundation support as well. So it is largely self-sustaining. We do not seek or take governmental grants other than the PPP loan for this last year during COVID. And we are local, friendly, and trusted. All of these folks are our folks. These are, I think you'll recognize Joan Burnham there in one of our photos. And it really is that about having local contacts that are friendly and trusted. Now, Capital City Village, we were the first village, first nonprofit of our sorts in Texas. But this map shows you the village movement on a larger scale. So it really started in Boston in about 2001, and a group of retired professionals and academics got together and thought about ways that they could have a little bit of support when and if they needed it, the way that they could enjoy the activities in their community, but do that with others, with other friends, and find those connections that they needed. And so they put together the infrastructure of a nonprofit so that with one phone call, you could be connected to volunteers, additional resources, perhaps a staff that would help you with anything that might come up. And so the idea really proliferated over the last 2 decades. And now there are quite a few organizations across the country. We even have a national umbrella organization. We convene for an annual conference and really do a lot of best practice sharing, a lot of information sharing, and really help build and sustain villages wherever there is an interest from seniors in getting those going. So there are about 250, almost 300 open currently, more than 100 that are in some form of development. In other words, there's some folks that have shown interest. They're trying to get the footing in their community to get things going, just as Capital City Village did a dozen years ago and officially opened its doors in 2011. So you really need a volunteer force, a group of seniors that are interested in participating either through membership or through lending their volunteer support. And it takes some early funding. Capital City Village was really lucky to get some early funding from the St. David's Foundation, that really help us, launch, and it's been growing quite steadily since then. And we're really pleased to have it represented in all parts of the city. I'm going to go in a little bit to benefits of membership. Again, Capital City Village is a membership organization. So folks that participate do pay dues, but again, those are on a sliding scale so that we have an income range or a dues level fit for people of all incomes and all backgrounds. And we do have representation in all parts of the city. Our service area is defined as City of Austin. So we are not yet at a point where we can go into Buda or Cedar Park, et cetera. But we are happy to get organization and help get some resources to folks if we can help get some interest going in those other areas. But basically, we come at it from a three-pronged approach. We are really focused on people, not a housing unit, not a neighborhood of growth, not getting people warehoused or some efficiency in delivering services. We really are focused on individuals. And that really, it speaks through our volunteer support, through our focus on staff, through the leadership of our board of directors. It really is about making a difference in individual people's lives. So we have volunteer services to support any needs that come up. And there are some limits on what our volunteers can do. But most of that is something that we can either help with directly or indirectly. We have enriching programs to build social connection. And we provide access to professional service providers as well as other community resources. So we keep a friendly relationship with other nonprofits and agencies in the area. In case there's something that we can't help with directly, we will try to make sure that you're connected with a resource that can. Again, I mentioned the sliding scales, sliding scale dues approach so that it is fit for all incomes. And with the membership comes the benefit of receiving up to 3 service requests per week. Largely that's transportation. There's been a lot of support with technology this last year, as you can imagine, a lot of help with home and yard. And sometimes we get a random request that we haven't had before, but we again try to meet it where we can through our volunteers or other connections. The other side of that benefit of membership is really the social connection. So we have activities and programs that really do help build connections. There is community support from your neighbors and even different people in the village throughout Austin. And we have seen, as pictured here, a couple of our folks, what we've seen happen is the formation of improbable friendships. So these are folks that didn't know each other before, maybe would not have encountered each other at all, except for their connection with Capital City Village. So here pictured is one of our members and a volunteer. So when this member had a health issue that came up, the volunteer was helpful and did some dog sitting and watching for a while. And they found that they had a lot of things in common beyond a love of dogs. And we're able to really form a friendship and check in on each other now regularly. I mentioned the engaging programs, and I'll talk a little bit more about some of those coming up. And for me, there's something that is a little less, less easy to define. And I really describe it as a peace of mind, knowing that there will be help for you if you need it, and that you can call on the office or call on our volunteers when needed. And there's some peace of mind in knowing that that's available to you when you need it. This, I think, is of interest. So again, I mentioned that what we're seeing demographically is really a worldwide phenomenon of people living longer, a larger share of the population aging, and so that the senior demographics are really becoming critically important, not just here, not just in Texas, not just in the US, but really worldwide. So back, I don't know, 10 or 15 years ago, the World Health Organization developed 8 markers or 8 domains for what would make a community age-friendly. And so what they have done is now promote this. And so certain cities, including Austin, have adopted the age-friendly concept. And so they've begun making recommendation through their task forces. They make recommendations to the local government about how they can improve everything from transportation to housing, social participation, communication and information, job opportunities, et cetera, so that they can improve those for the senior population. And then we report back every so often to the city and then ultimately to the World Health Organization about how much progress we're making with regard to making Austin more age-friendly. And villages are inherently age-friendly. So within the village model, we address the opportunities for volunteer support, community connections, information sharing, and generally speaking, an improved quality of life. And that's very much the feedback we get from our membership. The villages, and Capital City Village is no exception, we are intergenerational. Within our membership, the age ranges from 60 to 102. And then our volunteers make up a whole other segment of demographics. Our volunteers, generally speaking, are 21 and up. That does not include the youngsters that are pictured on that picture in the left. But if somebody, a volunteer, wants to bring a kiddo along, we think it's a great way for them to learn how to do some community service. Again, beyond being intergenerational, we really serve a variety of incomes. About 1/3 of our members live at about 200% of the federal poverty level, and we adjust those rates and those levels yearly with those reported rates. So we find that if we can make it affordable to have that support for everyone, then it's better for the community as a whole. And more than half of our members live alone. And so we feel like there is, through the village, a support that's available that you might not have to call on family or neighbors quite as often, but you know that it's there if you need it. And these are all of our folks. This is a recent group on the left, a church affiliated group that did a yard cleanup for a couple of our members over in the Miller community. And then this over here on the right is one of our members who lived for most of her life in East Austin. And again, another group of young people there to help her out. We also like to focus not just on the volunteer services, but on our engaging programs. And so this is a group here from the UT School of Nutritional Sciences. And for the last 2 semesters, they've given us a series about healthy eating and healthy nutrition specifically for seniors. It's been a great benefit for our folks, but it's also really helped those young students who are learning and really want to share the research that they're doing. So we feel like programs that really are focused on health and wellness, that things that are focused on information that are useful for seniors, as well as social connection. So again, we have plenty of opportunities for people to get together and really focus on maintaining those connections, because so often people that do live alone and have limited outlets are very much at high risk of social isolation, and particularly during this last year. So we really made every effort to try to stay in contact with people either by phone or by Zoom, and a lot of even in-person drop-off of care packages. So it really has been a great way to stay connected to people, even when sometimes life makes that very challenging. We also have very informational programs pictured here. A Statesman columnist, Michael Barnes, did a special talk for us. Lower picture is Salim Asaf through the Better Hearing Center of Austin. So again, a lot of our talks focus on health and wellness, but some of them are arts and culture. Austin Acoustic Guitar Society has done several programs for us. We've had David Brown with the Texas Standard. We've had a lot of folks, Judy Maggio, and some other folks that Jim Spencer. So a number of folks that have really given some great talks for us. And we really feel like this is an opportunity not just to hear from these local notables, but also really to bring our members and our friends along together. I wanted to speak a little bit to our volunteer impact. So this is just a snapshot of sort of what we do. Again, this is a couple of young people doing a recent service at one of our members in South Austin. So the service at home is certainly a help. So this really saves the person having to worry about it or having to go to the expense of bringing in a professional service to work in her yard. So really, home and yard is really big. Technology has been a huge effort for us this last year, but typically just any day of the week, transportation is really the biggest need. And so once you get to the point where you're actually helping people stay in their homes, you really don't want them to be isolated in their homes. So getting them out to the appointments, the medical appointments, the physical therapy, even social connections are really critically important. So we do anywhere from 750 on upwards rides per year, and our volunteers log easily 2,000 plus hours of volunteer service. And then, you know, again, whatever our volunteers cannot help with, then we refer out to service providers. Our volunteers do have some parameters. They are not to give any sort of personal assistance, medical assistance. So much of our effort with our volunteers is supportive in nature. So we can't help with medication, we can't help with bathing and dressing, but we can help with food and, you know, grocery shopping. We can help with getting to and from critical medical appointments. We can even help with social outings. And so some of that is really critically important. And we feel like our volunteers in that service really do fill a gap that otherwise would just be a vacant need. I'd like to talk too about our community connections. So as the village is now celebrating 10 years, we have built some important relationships over that time. And it's been really part of our effort because we know that there is no one solution for aging well in your home and staying connected to your community. We are not the only solution, neither is Drive a Senior, Family Elder Care, Age of Central Texas, but we have friendly relationships with all those groups. And we really feel like through the Aging Services Council, that we have the connections so that if there's a need that we don't fill, we know that we can call on a friendly organization or agency that will help us with that. And vice versa. We get a lot of referrals from the Area Agency on Aging and from Family Elder Care because other folks see a need that we can help fill. We also have had a lot of success with an annual intern from the UT School of Social Work, their master's program. We've had an intern with us for the last 4 years and working with some of our more at-risk seniors and really doing great work. It's been a huge benefit for us, as well as the Aging and Disability Resource Center, various communities of faith. And we also formed last year a special partnership with a group called SAVA, which is South Asian International Volunteer Association. And those are seniors that are primarily late stage immigrants from India. And our effort there, we found that we were doing a lot of the same thing just for different groups of seniors. And so that was our attempt to really consolidate some of our efforts. Progress on that slowed because of COVID, but we are hoping to get that kicked back into high gear very soon. And we are always looking for those important connections with other groups in the community. So I mentioned earlier that we are self-sustaining. Part of the way that we do that is through our annual golf tournament. That's going to be October 2nd, and that's at Riverside Golf Course this year. And also through our annual luncheon. And we'll be celebrating our 10th birthday party this year. That'll be at the Norris Conference Center, and our distinguished speaker will be Libby Doggett. She is the former Deputy Assistant Secretary for Policy and Learning at the Department of Education, and that will be on November 10th. We'll have a lot of other special guests as well as entertainment, and that will be live in person as well as live stream through our YouTube channel. I did want to let you know, in case you're interested or know of a friend or neighbor who might be curious about what we're up to, there are some really great programs coming up in June. So please make note of these dates. All of this information is on our calendar section in our website, and all of it is available free. You can register. These will be Zoom programs, but we are hoping to return to in-person programs very soon. So we're testing that out already. So please do make note if you're interested or know somebody that might be. We welcome new people to those programs every time. Again, here's my contact information, and I will share this slides, this presentation with folks after the program. If I have your email address, I'll send it out. If you have questions, if you want to email or call me, please feel free to, and I'll be glad to share that information. I do want to go ahead and make sure that I open it up for everyone to have a chance to ask questions. There is one other thing that I wanted to say just before we actually get into the Q&A. Sometimes people, I get so interested in talking about what we do and the people that are involved. I sometimes forget to mention the why. And so each one of the people that is involved with Capital City Village has a story about why they're involved, what brought them to the organization. And I can say for myself that, I discovered the village concept when I was in grad school, getting my master's degree. And I was really interested on affordable and innovative developments and innovations for senior housing, supportive senior housing. And I was really focused on, what a difference that could make to my own parents who had been in their own ranch style home in Amarillo, Texas since 1962. They've both passed now, but as they did age in their own home, I did understand the real challenges that they went through, and myself as an adult child and trying to help them long distance. And so what I was really interested in when I heard about the village concept was how supportive and how much peace of mind it could create, not only for the